Good afternoon. You are watching City News 24/7. I'm Melanie Ng.
And I'm Faiza Amin. You could call it the threat heard around Canada. Incoming U.S. President Donald Trump planning to slap a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the country's premiers all in Ottawa today for this high-stakes meetings to form a response to Trump.
Yes, and we're going to bring in our Glenn McGregor joining us now from Ottawa. We heard a bit of an outline of what will be discussed today, Glenn.
Yeah, that's right. We have a general idea of what's on the agenda for the premiers and the prime minister and some of his cabinet ministers. They're first going to be discussing Canada's response to Trump's concerns about the border. You know, he said that he's going to put these 25% tariffs on all goods exported from Canada into the United States because of his concerns about human smuggling, migrants coming across the border from Canada into the U.S., as well as the flow of illegal drugs and fentanyl in particular. Now, Canada has announced $1.3 billion in new spending today, and they've given some details on how this is all going to work. Buying helicopters, drones, putting more boots on the ground for the RCMP to help patrol border regions. The big question is this going to make any difference to Donald Trump? And there's a real division, I can tell you guys, amongst the premiers about how best to respond to these threats of tariffs, and it all revolves around energy. The idea has been floated that Canada could do some kind of energy embargo, make it harder for Americans or more expensive for Americans to buy oil and gas and electricity from Canada. The premiers are split on this. Danielle Smith from Alberta, Scott Moe from Saskatchewan, both representing energy exporters, absolutely opposed to this plan. Smith even saying it could cause a unity crisis. But the federal government so far saying everything is on the table. They do not want to take this potential retaliatory measure out of their arsenal should they have to respond next week and if Trump makes good on this threat. We caught up with some of the premiers on their way into this meeting. Let's hear from Newfoundland and Labrador's Premier Andrew Furey and followed by Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Here's what they had to say coming in.
I see energy as Canada's queen in this game of chess. We don't need to expose our queen too early. The opposition does need to know that the queen exists, but they don't need to know what we're going to do with the queen. So let's see what the tariffs actually are first and have a proportional, but let me be very clear, a strong response to the United States.
All around the country, everyone has their concerns, their jurisdictions from coast to coast to coast. But there's one thing that's more important than jurisdictions, is standing up for the country. Country comes first over anything, and we're going to continue to fight against these tariffs.
It's interesting to hear Premier Furey talking about this metaphor about a chess game, and the queen in that metaphor is the idea of somehow making it harder for Americans to buy Canadian energy, either through an energy embargo or some kind of export permits. This is an idea that was floated actually originally by Premier Ford. He talked about cutting off Ontario's electricity to the northeastern United States as a possible tool that could be used to respond if Trump makes good on these tariff threats. But as I say, there is not unity around the table today. This is something they're going to be hammering out more this afternoon is when the talk turned to the issue of retaliation and exactly how Canada intends to strike back. We'll see in a couple hours whether the premiers can reach any kind of harmony on this point, whether they all get on the same page, or if it's going to be kind of a go-it-alone approach. Mel, Faiza.
Doug Ford really making a statement with the hat he's wearing, by the way. Part of those conversations will, of course, as you mentioned, include the Prime Minister. But Justin Trudeau did speak ahead of this afternoon's meetings.
That's right. I mean, the Prime Minister is essentially the host of the First Minister's meeting, even though he is now in kind of lame duck mode. And there's some suggestions from other premiers, Smith, Moe, again, saying that we need an election now to put somebody in place who's going to has more of a mandate from the Canadian people, from voters, to negotiate with the United States over this. But that's not going to happen, of course. Justin Trudeau has said he is not stepping down as leader until a new leader is chosen by the Liberal Party on March 9th. And that's, of course, an ongoing story that we're following, is this leadership race to replace him. But nevertheless, let's listen to what Justin Trudeau said at the beginning of this meeting.
Every different region of the country has a deep relationship with our single biggest trading partner, and making sure that the interests and the concerns of all Canadians are fed into our national response, our national perspective.
Now, the thing is, no one here really knows exactly what is going to happen on Inauguration Day on Monday. Donald Trump has said that he intends to act quickly on putting these tariffs on Canadian and Mexican products in place in the first days of his second term in office. There is some talk in the United States media, reports about a possible gradual phase-in of these tariffs, the idea that they would start with maybe 2% or 5% a month and escalate up to that 25% level. The idea there is to kind of blunt the blow that American consumers would feel if they're, all the products they buy from Canada, particularly oil and gas, are hit with these tariffs. And if they're very sensitive in the United States to the possibility of the price of gasoline at the pumps going up. And by putting that tariff on Canadian-made oil, that is certainly going to have a contributory factor to that. But it's all kind of just a wait-and-see game from this. Kirsten Hillman, who is the Canadian ambassador to the United States, is in that meeting trying to give an update to premiers on where exactly they think this is going. But, you know, as some of the premiers said on their way into this meeting, really there's only one person who knows exactly what's going to happen, and that is Donald Trump.
His inauguration day just 5 days away. Glenn McGregor in Ottawa bringing us the very latest. Thank you so much. We'll check in with you later on.